There's an invisible skill that is largely overlooked, at least in my experience, both in sports and in business and really in life in general. And it's something that every champion must have. Every great champion has this. It's something once you have it in your mind and you start to look for it, whether you're looking at a sports champion or a champion in really anything. It could be a champion parent. You know, it could be almost anything. Someone that's just getting phenomenal results, we'll call a champion, okay? And once you start looking for this, it changes your perspective on why they're so successful. I witnessed this, and I continue to witness it in the last 39 years. I started interviewing self-made millionaires in 1984, and I do it up to this current day, and it's over 1,330 something now interviews of self-made millionaires and billionaires, and they all have this invisible skill. It's just a skill that's just not sexy. It's not talked about, but it's something that if you don't have it, you will never be a champion, in my opinion. It just has to be there. And this skill, this invisible, non-sexy skill, is the skill of consistency. Consistent performance. Again, now you heard that and you go, gee, I thought it was going to be something really sexy. It's not. It's not sexy at all. But I will tell you that I grew up in the National Junior Tennis Circuit, and when I was really young, I was fairly successful around the country competing at that level, trying to be a professional tennis player. When I got older, go to Division I school, which I did, and then play professional tennis, which I also did. And what I noticed was in the first 2 or 3 years, and my coaches used to talk about it, was it's not so much about how great you are on a certain day. It's how great you are on an average day. Can you consistently turn in a great performance? And that was, frankly, one of my problems. Is at any given time, especially when I was a pro, I could have beaten almost anyone in the world on a given day, on a great day, my best day, their worst day. But could I do it consistently? Absolutely not. And that's why I was not a great professional tennis player, because consistency is the mark of the champion. But it's not talked about. And the most important thing is, how do you develop it? It's not really hard to make the case for it. You know, let's take it to the entrepreneurial world with self-made millionaires, let's say. Okay, so how does it factor in with them? They put in the same amount of work day after day after day after day. And that work is, and the same with sports, that work, that consistent pattern is a result of consistent thinking. That's where it all really begins. That's how I've dissected it over the years, because I've noticed it over and over. Then, of course, you look in the mirror at yourself and say, am I that consistent? And if I'm not, then I'm probably not getting the kind of results that I want to be getting. Ask yourself with your work ethic in your business or your career, or if you're a student in school, do you put in a consistent effort? It was like when I was in school, like when I was in college. I did fairly well in college. I had an academic scholarship, and I did pretty well, but I never really turned in a consistent performance because I didn't really even know why I was at college. I just couldn't figure it out. To this day, I don't know why I went to college. It just wasn't my thing. I enjoyed it. It was fun in some ways, but I just never turned in a consistent performance. So as a result, I didn't get as much out of it as I could. But the people that do thrive. So it's an easy case to make that consistency and performance is one of the great keys to outstanding results. But then again, you know, how does this happen? Well, for one, if you're doing what you love to do, you will tend to be far more consistent than the average person who's doing it for an external reason. You know, if they're doing it for money, for example. A lot of people get into businesses and careers because they want money. They know a doctor makes money and a lawyer makes money and a dentist makes money, and people that are in professions make pretty good money, and sometimes they make really great money and all that. They get into it for the wrong reasons. But if you take a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist or a chiropractor or anyone else that gets into that profession because they love it, they just can't stop thinking about it, they read about it, they think about it, they dream about it, they just want to do it all the time, that's when performance becomes very consistent. And really it starts with that drive, and then it moves to clarity of thought. Because most people are erratic performers. They're great one day, good one day, and lousy one day. And it kind of repeats itself. And that's the result of erratic thinking. they're not really clear in what they want to do, why they're there, what they're going to. Same as me in college. I was the same way. I was erratic. You know, when I focused, I paid attention, I got straight A's. When I didn't, my grades fell. Pretty simple, but it really starts with your thinking. So where you really want to start with this, if you take this very seriously and you want to really use it to elevate your performance, is how clear is your thinking about what you do? Okay? How clear is your thinking? Do you know why you're doing it? Do you love doing it? Or are you just doing it for an external result as opposed to an internal result? I don't care how good you are at something, a person doing something for money or some other external reason will never, over time, will never have the kind of long-term success as someone doing it for internal or intrinsic reasons. Reasons that Bill Gove, my late business partner, used to say, when you love something, when you love what you do, the only experience you need is doing it. Just doing it is enough. Yes, if you get some kind of reward like money or praise or recognition, then you say, oh, well, isn't that great? That's a bonus. It's it's the icing on the cake. But most of your reward comes from inside because it's intrinsic. It has so much intrinsic internal value to you that just doing it is enough of a reward. That's when you become dangerous. That's when you get great, because you're going to do it anyway. And that love of it drives you to get clear about what you actually want to accomplish. And then once you get clear about what you want to accomplish, your thinking is no longer erratic. Your thinking is consistent. And consistent thinking leads to consistent behavior. And of course, consistent behavior leads to consistent results. You know, look at Jeff Bezos with Amazon. Everyone thought back in the day, if you're old enough, you remember this. If not, you might have read about it somewhere in a history book. But in the 90s, everyone thought Jeff Bezos was out of his mind. Obviously, he's a really smart guy, but Amazon was losing money over and over and over. And people said, this guy is doing this and he's losing money every year. They thought he was a nut job. And all of a sudden, now he's the richest man in the world. Because Bezos was consistent and he was clear in his thinking. He was, in my experience at least, I don't know him personally, I've never interviewed him, but just reading about him and seeing, in the media, in the press, he was never erratic, or he didn't seem to ever be erratic. He had a consistency in thought, he had a clarity in his mind, and he behaved consistently. And now he's the richest man in the world, and Amazon took over, just destroyed retail as we know it, and just took over the world. Pretty amazing. Again, you can see this with athletes. Tom Brady's another one. Is he great all the time? He's pretty close to great all the time. It's consistency in his thinking, which leads to behavior, which leads to results. It's actually pretty simple, but if you break it down, I would challenge you, if you care about this, I would challenge you to look in the mirror, analyze yourself, and ask yourself, am I consistent day after day after day? Or do I put in a great performance or a great work ethic, and then I back off? Then I put in work, then I back off. Then I put in work, and I back off. And you kind of go up and down like a roller coaster, or you just at it all the time. And if you're not at it all the time, I'd ask you to ask yourself this critical thinking question. Do I love doing this? Do I love doing this? I know this might sound cliche because a lot of people in the last, seems like decade or so, we went from do what you love and the money will follow to people saying, well, go for the money anyway. Let me tell you something that you may already know. Okay, if you've ever had more money than you need, I'm not talking about Jeff Bezos money. I'm talking about just more money than you need. Money is not going to make you any happier. Once you have what you need, it's all gravy, and it reaches a point of tremendous diminishing return. Okay, the satisfaction you get from extra money more than you need is greatly diminished when you buy something extra. So where does the fulfillment in life come from? It typically, a lot of times it comes from, of course, family and love and relationships and all that. And beyond that, it comes from work a lot of times. And if you don't love it, you're never going to have it. You may make a bunch of money and wonder, why you're doing it once you have more than you need. But if you love it, that's where it all begins. There's the engine. Now, once you get to that point, if you've gotten to that point, you are one of the luckiest people in the world that you found what you love to do. Now you get clarity of thought and say, now that I love what I want to do, what do I do with this? Get clear. Write a vision. Write goals. Write it any way that makes sense to you to get clear in your thinking. And then say, what consistent behaviors do I need to employ to get what I want? And then start to employ them. And when it works, keep doing it. And when it doesn't work, keep doing it. And when you're winning, keep doing it. And when you're failing, keep doing it. Just keep doing it until you succeed. If you're consistent, you can't mess over time.